My homilies going to start boring but get more interesting. I'm sorry. I couldn't figure out how to make a really interesting start, so we're just going to dive into the boring part first. I wanted to find the word faith, and I think the Catechism gives us the best explanation of what faith is. Faith, according to the Catechism, is the personal adherence to God. That sounds kind of simple. It means that I'm choosing to cling to the Lord. Now, it spells it out a little more, some more specifics. It says that means submitting to God our intellect and our will. That's the part that's going to get boring. Okay. What does it mean to submit my intellect to God? So my intellect, or your intellect, is given to us so that we might be able to understand the world around us. And using our intellect, we're able to understand things that are true. We're able to understand things that are right and good. Our intellect can be wrong sometimes. It's not like it's infallible or perfect, but it really is able to grasp things that are real and true outside of ourselves. So when we say that faith involves submitting our intellect to God, it means that we're acknowledging that God is the creator of all that is true. God is the creator of all that is good. God is the eternal mind, you could say. And I am fallen, and I'm small, and I have a finite, imperfect intellect. God has the perfect intellect. So if God says that something is true or something is good, I have to be the one that's wrong. If ever there's a disagreement between us, I have to be the one that's wrong, because he's the one who created everything that is. He knows what's true and good. So when I submit my intellect to the Lord, it means that I acknowledge that he must be right. Whenever something is, I think something is true or good, but I'm wrong, he must be the one who's right. To submit my will to him means then that when the Lord has shown me what is true or good, then I now need to choose it, right? The will is about choosing. And so that's all that really means. When I say that I have faith, it means that I personally adhere to the Lord, I cling to him by submitting to God my intellect and my will. Boring part over, fun. Okay, so when Jesus says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, he's talking about faith here. That's the kind of faith he's talking about. He's talking about clinging to God. It's not just about like this intellectual assent to some, teachings or some propositions. Yes, it can include that. But what he's primarily talking about here is clinging to the Lord. And when he says you just have to have the faith the size of a mustard seed, you have to cling to the Lord at least a little bit. Maybe that's all you can do right now. That's okay. He's proud of us for trying, even if that's all we've got to offer right now is just a little bit. He says, if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, you would say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey you. I think that Jesus' audience that day would have said, whoa, whereas you and I say, what? What does that mean? A mulberry tree, you probably have a context for what a mulberry tree looks like. A mulberry tree has an intensive root system. And it's not that they go very deep, they don't. They go really far out. So from the trunk to the end of the roots could be 40 feet. So the idea of uprooting a mulberry tree, that's just laughable. It's impossible for anybody to move a mulberry tree. And then plant it in the sea. No one plants a tree in the middle of the sea. So Jesus is saying, if you have at least the smallest amount of faith, you would be able to do impossible things. I think today's feast, this morning, that would be, St. Francis of Assisi, kind of gives us a really good example of somebody who had the faith the size of a mustard seed that did some amazing things. St. Francis of Assisi lived 800 years ago in a little town in Italy on the hillside. It's still kind of a little town. When he was growing up, yes, he was Catholic, but I think he was more known for being a party boy. That was really what he was known for. He liked to have a good time. He had a group of friends. They'd go out drinking. They'd go out partying. They liked to make a lot of noise in the streets. The kind of guy that if you were in high school, you would have loved hanging out with him, no matter who you were. He was just fun to be around. That's what he was known for. Lighthearted, happy-go-lucky, faithful to some degree, I'm sure, but not really what he's known for. And then, at one point, he has to go into, there's a war that Assisi finds itself involved in. He has to fight. He ends up getting taken as prisoner for a while, where he finds himself spending a long time in a dungeon that is wet, and there's terrible food. There's not much food. There's rats. It's cold. So when he eventually comes home, he's like 21 years old. He's a little, his worldview's kind of been shaken. Like, the world just seemed so fun before. And he comes back, and he's actually rather depressed. and he doesn't quite know what to do with his life. He tries getting back into the partying stuff that he was into before, but he just can't seem to get his heart into it the same way. And so he doesn't tell his friends this, but he starts going and praying in church at other times of the day. Just when they're not around, he's just sneaking into the back of the church just to go be with his thoughts, be with his feelings, talk with God a little bit. So I would say this is the point at which he's got the faith the size of a mustard seed. It's not much to work with. He's just disenfranchised with life, and he's trying to sort it all out in his head. He doesn't quite know what to do with it yet. And there was one day where he's praying inside of a small church at the foot of the hill of Assisi, and while he's looking at a cross, which is almost exactly the same size as our cross, he finds himself staring up at that crucifix, thinking, talking to God, and he swears that Jesus on that crucifix started talking to him. And he could see the lips move, and he could hear the voice. And God said to him through that cross, Francis, I want you to rebuild my church. He took that literally to mean that God wanted to do a renovation of that church that he was sitting in. So Francis went home. His dad was a cloth merchant. Francis took a whole bunch of his dad's cloth, the finest he could find, went and sold it, and then gave that money to the priest at that little parish and said, here, renovate your church. Seemed like a really generous act. Kind of stupid, though, because it wasn't his cloth to sell. So Francis gets himself in some trouble. His dad basically initiates a lawsuit with him that has to be settled by the bishop, who's basically the judge of the town. And it is decided that Francis has to pay back everything for what he took. So thankfully, the priest hadn't spent any of that money yet, so he was able to give that money right back to his dad. And he said, you know what, while I'm at it, the clothes on my back, these are also from you, so I'm going to give these to you too. So he took off all of his clothes and walked out of town butt naked. So isn't Francis unexpected and fun? So Francis kind of spends a period of time not sure what he's going to do with his life, but he's got himself in this pattern of prayer, and now he's literally destitute and poor. And he finds that in spending time in prayer, he starts to have this growing sense that he needs to just give himself to the service of other people. Find the other poor people in town and just start serving them. Minister to the lepers. Be generous with those who are in need. Feed those who are hungry. Beg for food on their behalf as well as your own behalf. So he finds that he just wants to live the gospel with an intensity he's never seen anybody live the gospel. And he just starts to do it. And within a few weeks of this kind of conversion moment, he's already got about 5 guys who've asked if they can join him in his new, Christian living situation. And it's amazing how quickly that spread. He starts to preach in the city streets. I'm sure the people thought he was crazy. But he would preach about the love of God. He preached a lot about the humanity of Jesus and how Jesus is with us, and he's come to be with us in the sacraments, and he's with us in the poor, and he's with us within nature, and it really starts to win over people's hearts. So by the time he dies at the age of 44, his little community, that was just him at first, and then a few other friends, was 5,000 people living his way of life. He inspired, you could say, a spiritual revolution in his part of the world, which we're still kind of experiencing today. You still have plenty of Franciscan orders. You see the impact of Francis's life. But it all started from him sitting in those dark churches by himself, just wrestling with his thoughts, probably feeling I don't have a whole lot of faith. What am I supposed to do? I know there's some of you sitting in the pews who feel like that right now. You feel like you don't have much faith, and you wish that God would increase your faith. You wish that God would fix your lack of faith. And God's just proud of you that you have some faith. It's great that you're here. The Lord was proud of Francis that he was in the church at all. Yes, God had other plans. He wanted to see Francis continuing to grow. He doesn't want us to stay a mustard seed. He wants us to start there, yes. He doesn't want us to stay there. So the Lord's proud of you for being where you are. I would say it's not a problem that our faith is that small, so long as we don't leave it there. It only becomes a problem if I'm struggling with doubts. That's fine. That's a normal thing. Don't even confess that you struggle with doubts. That's fine. But if we're in that place where we refuse to try to resolve our doubts, that becomes a problem. That could even become sinful. I don't know if this is true. I don't know if that's good. And you just choosing not to try to learn, ask somebody, ask the questions, try to resolve the doubt in our head, we're making our faith stay the size of a mustard seed at that point. And then we're responsible. That's not a good thing. But so long as we're striving to understand, so long as we're striving to grow, God can do really great things. So today we ask St. Francis to pray for all of us, to help us with our faith, that we might truly experience an increase and that we be okay with the fact that our faith might just be as small as a mustard seed.